All right. Good evening. Today is another edition of our Kappa Conversation series. Today we have former Polemarch Duane Graves. Uh, Brother Graves is a 1975 initiate of the Beta Nu chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He's originally from Los Angeles, and he was our Polemarch from 2010 to 2012. And he's going to take some time out of his busy schedule to talk with us today. Today is June the 20th, 2022, and so let's get right into it. Doc, how you doing?
All right. How are you?
Good, good, good. Um, so let's start off with where you from originally.
So originally I was born in Seattle, Washington, in 1956, and then 2 years later, my mother moved down to the LA area, looking for work, but also I had asthma as a young child, so doctors recommended me move to a a drier, warmer climate, just for health reasons. So from there, I just, grew up in the city of Los Angeles, and upon graduation, I was initially was supposed to go to San Jose State University, which was up north by San Francisco. But I guess mess ups in the registrar's office didn't send my transcript on time for me to get a formal acceptance. So having not been admitted into college, I was like, well, I'm going to stay here and work because I was working at the Los Angeles County District Court as a court clerk, and I was making some pretty good money for a 17-year-old, but my mother was like, nah, buddy, you're not gonna stay in LA by yourself. You must be crazy. So what she did then, I got shipped off to St. Louis. Okay. So I entered I started school at Forest Park Community College, which was in St. Louis. And the school, St. Louis or Beta Nu, is a citywide chapter. So there's 5 different universities that make up the Beta Nu chapter. So it's UMSL, University of St. Louis, University of Missouri, St. Louis, WashU, Forestland Valley, Forest Park, Merrimack, and Harris Teacher Stowe. So um, we had a general meeting at Forest Park because it was the easiest place to get a room. But then I started seeing the brothers on the yard, and you know I was very impressed with how they carry themselves, right? And then I always recognize that they are always in the center of activity. So, the BSU march, a couple of problems on campus, and so they were very active in the campus community. And so I gravitated to Kappas, and they like, yeah, why don't you come to our smoker? Now, I pledged as a second semester freshman.
Oh wow,
So
wow.
I had 12 credits, and you
uh,
know, I um I pledged then. Um so I'm a proponent of bringing brothers into the fraternity at a young period in their collegiate years, because they can sustain the legacy of the chapter longer and pass it on to more people than these, our recent activities of bringing in juniors and seniors, and that's
Mm.
why we're losing membership. But if you come in at a younger age, then you'll spend more time in developing the chapter's legacy and moving the chapter to prominence on the campus.
Now let me ask you this. Now, where were you when the riots broke out in Watts? Were you still in LA when that happened?
Yes, I was. So there were two riots in Los Angeles. There was the 68 riots, or actually it was three. It was 63, 68, and 90, 91
Hmm.
after the
Right.
so I was in I lived in off of 42nd and Adams in 63, but I was only how old was I? 4, 7, right? Don't remember much, but I do remember the 68 after King was shot. And the social upheaval in Los Angeles is real. And I think people mistaken Los Angeles as the land of milk and honey, but I will tell you, Los Angeles, what you saw with Rodney King, that is definitely Los Angeles. That's definitely California.
Hmm.
And it is a very polarizing city. Um, there was an incident. I was gone at this time. I was already in St. Louis, but there was a young girl that was shot in the back of her head by a shop owner, and she the shop owner only received 5 years probation
Mm.
for killing a young girl while she she put her groceries down, turned around and was walking out the store, and the shop owner shot her in the back of the head.
Wow.
And the judge just slapped everybody in the face by sentencing her to 5 years probation.
Mm. Yeah. So
And
that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
and then this is the problem that is pervasive in our community, where the 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 insult, the insult, not only do policemen get off, but normal citizens get off for killing black people. And um I think George Floyd was a live, on the camera example of how this occurred, and now people are really waking up and see, the plight of the African American in this country.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's funny that you made that parallel. Because that I was going to ask you about that later on. What connections could you make from '68 until now? Somebody that's lived it. But I guess we can. I mean, you can go ahead and touch upon it now. We can come back to your time
well,
at
one of
that.
the things I would tell you is, I I was basically a social reformer. Um, my mother was active in the Black Student Union and the Panther Party in 66, 67, and 68. And I had the pleasure of sitting down at the table and eating dinner with Malcolm X.
Wait,
And
wait. Malcolm X. Yeah.
Malcolm X, I was 8 years old in
Wow.
63. And we came in. She was invited to have dinner at the mosque, and so we went. And so the Muslims have the separation where the women one side and men on the other. I went in through the men's side, and we sat at this super long table, must have been 20 or 30 feet long, and there were like 50 people at this table, men on one side, women on the other, and I sat across from my mother, and at the head of the table was Malcolm X. But at 8 years old, what are you going to draw from that? But I will tell you, so my indoctrination into African American plight came at a genuine age and an early age. Um, I met Cleaver, and I met Angela Davis, and unfortunately I was up at UCLA when the Panther Party and the Black Student
Oh,
Union had a
yeah.
shootout in
Uh-huh.
in '72.
Mhm.
So I went through a transformation in those years, and I became very pro-black. Now you call me racist, okay, maybe, but I call it being very pro-black. Okay, I don't I don't discount anybody based upon their race. I always look at the character of their skin, but I'm also a proponent of looking at Black people and looking at their plight and looking at why the conditions are the way they are, because inevitably race has something to do with it. Um, so, from there, I went on to St. Louis, and I pledged, and we were 10 line brothers. We were called the Quarantine 10 because we were always coming up sick and disappeared.
That's actually fitting, considering we were in the pandemic. Okay, so fast forward a little bit for me. So you go through undergrad, you come in as a freshman. Um, when you look back over how long you've been in the bond, uh, and we're gonna get to your 10 years Polemarch for a second, but and for those who don't know, Polemarch is just he's the leader of our chapter. Uh, what when you look back over that period of time in your life, what were some of your fondest memories during that youthful, very influential period of time?
So, the pledge program was a new experience I've never experienced before in life. And we went through it, but I think one of the things about Beta Nu is they are pro chapter. And what do I mean by that? They have a strong legacy of not allowing other chapters to come in and wreak havoc over their pledgees, right? So when things would get out of hand, the Beta Nu chapter brothers were like, all down, brothers, all down. Let's get this under control and under wraps. Let's hear some music. Let's start singing. They just would control a session. And one thing which I appreciate more than not is that we had already one day, it was a Friday night, and we had already been through session, right? And so the dean was like, line up, get ready, get your coats on, beat it, right? Right then, 3 carloads from brothers from Northeast Missouri State came rolling in. And our heads sunk in our head. It was like, oh man, here we go again. And so I was the 10, and he told us to go back into the basement, right? So everybody went down into the basement, but when I got down to the basement floor, the back door was open, and we had booked around the house and jumped into the car, and I was the last one in. And I dove into the back seat, and they closed the door, and we skidded all off. Right now, that right there tells me that the chapter was more concerned with their initiates than trying to fulfill a rowdy group of, brothers. Now, we did see them the next day, right? And we paid for it, but it wasn't a 8 to 10 hour on, 8 to 10 hour session. It was only, 2 or 3 hours and we're out. But at the end of the day, those are the things that I try to instill, because I know we get into this thing about hazing, right? And nobody can understand, nobody can explain it, but when done right, it does solidify a unit together, and it helps create that bond beyond college. If you look at Theta Theta, and how tight the brothers are after college, it's phenomenal. I don't think there's a fraternity on the yard that has that unity the way we do. So there's something to be said, but then there's something to be said about the carnage that it's created, you know. And unfortunately, we have to protect the livelihood of the fraternity, so we have to come up with creative ways to bring members in. Um, the There was a brother there at Beta Nu. His name was Daryl Sharp. He was the Polemarch, and he actually was enrolled at WashU. But Daryl was a phenomenal brother. I mean, when you talk about scholastic achievement, when you talk about athleticism and a leader, I was thoroughly impressed with Daryl. And unfortunately, Daryl passed away. He played football for WashU, and the last game of the season, he tore the ligaments in his knee. So
Oh,
they operated, right? And he was going through rehab, and his father was helping him up the stairs, and he had a blood clot break away from the injury,
oh
and
wow.
jump into his head, and just a heart attack,
Mm.
and that was a tragic loss. And I to this day I attribute my success um, to Daryl, because I try to mimic my activities behind, you know, his character, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, uh, and then we moved back to social issues, and so St. Louis had the same type of social issues as Los Angeles, right? So in 75, latter year of 75, I'm looking for a job, right? I could not find a job anywhere. I was going here, there, applying this, just could not get hired. Then I had answered an ad for accounting clerk. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I'm an engineer major. Why not? So I applied. Now, understand this, my dialect is not a true African American dialect. Over the phone, I could be um, mistaken to be of a different hue.
Okay. Okay.
And so they were, oh sure, come on down. And when I came down, all of a sudden their mouth just dropped. Okay. And I was like, what the hell? So they gave me a test. This woman gave me a test, you know, math test, and I blew it out, of course. And then after I finished the test, then they tell me we don't have a job.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was, today I probably would have went off, you know.
Yeah.
Then I was just like, man, screw this. So I went home and called my mother. Now, I guess fast forward, rewind. My mother's originally from DC.
Okay.
Okay, so she grew up in DC, and then went to Howard, and then went to Seattle. So while I was in St. Louis, she had moved back to DC for employment, but also to be with my grandmother, right? So I called my mother. I was like, get me the hell out of here. I gotta go. I need a job, send me a ticket, boom. So there were some brothers from Beta Nu here already in DC that were interacting with Theta Theta. So the Beta Nu brothers, like, yeah, when you go up, when you get to DC, go to University of Maryland and check out the Theta Theta brothers, and so forth. And so that's what I did, and got introduced to the brothers, and it was the Beta Nu brothers that were here were Tobias Fortenberry and Adrian Rogers. And so we got, this became, a good group. Now, I wasn't in school at that point, so I was working up at Montgomery Ward's. And then I think I applied for enrollment in 77. Yeah.
Okay.
So, or 78. I applied for enrollment in 78. Then, just interacting. I was a transfer brother at Theta Theta. And I brought some information over from Beta Nu and learned some information, learned the East Coast style of the bond. And it was genuine. I love the bond at Theta Theta. It was the first time that I saw brothers as every Friday. Every Friday we hung out. Every Friday. So we started. Well, this is later on, but every Friday you would come up to the student union out front, and the student union, you would walk up to Maryland and look at student union and swear it was a HBCU because there was nothing but niggas out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was crazy. I mean, and it was just such a fulfilling bond to see progressive, intelligent, active Black people, on this major college campus. And then we would transition from the union over to the townhouse, and where Ricky Clemens and Ricky Clemens and Salt and Tab were all living. These are all Theta Theta brothers, and so the townhouse was the unofficial Kappa house, and it was a wild place. It was,
Yeah.
to say the least, it was a wild place. But the brothers always could find each other every Friday night, and that was the rally point. Was the townhouse in the student union, and those are the things that the legacies that actually promote the history and the foundation of the chapter. You know,
Now,
and
Doc, now, let's I wanted to fast forward briefly. So you were Polemarch from 2010 to 2012. Um, so I guess my first question would be in terms of, the time you were Polemarch, what were some of the challenges that you faced as Polemarch?
so we were in 2010. We've been chartered for 5 years. And I think our membership at that point was about 68, 70 brothers. And the biggest challenge was reclamation and getting members back. Um, and, and I guess we were also searching for our identity, as a chapter in the province. And that was our major thrust, is like, how do we interact and survive in a highly competitive province like the Eastern Province, and I think over the course of the years, behind good leadership, um, from Polemarch to Polemarch, we have solidified our legacy as a trendsetter, in the province. Um, I guess, having reclamation is an ongoing. We have the fraternity's only working on 28% of its membership,
Correct.
and that's crazy. We should not be working on 28%. We should be, in the 50s, 60%. But that's the problem that we have, and we have to recognize how do we engage the members that are inactive. What is it that would drive them to come back to be active in the fraternity? You know, Everybody's different, and every program doesn't affect each other the same way. But
Right.
we have to be able to engage programming that reaches out to particular brothers sex, particular bands, so that we can maximize our potential. um, I think we do a bad job of bringing in brothers and then not having anything that is going to sustain them and energize them to stay. uh,
Mm.
we can't just keep doing the same old things and expect a different result.
Right. Right. That's a good segue. So for you would say that it is retention is the word that came to my mind. Also, when you think about in terms of wanting to be a good leader, what are some of the qualities that you have seen either demonstrated by someone or I mean, we all know that you are a very strong personality, but talk to me a little bit about your leadership style and what you think a good leader is.
A good leader listens to his membership. A good leader is a delegator of responsibility. A good leader allows his chairmen to run programs and drive the fraternity. Um, I, yeah, I have a strong personality. I have a strong belief system, but I also have a strong belief that I'm gonna give you the role. I'm gonna let you run with it, and you just report back. What's going on. Unless there's something detrimental happening, I'm not going to interject into a decision. That the chairman and the committee decide. That's not the role of the Polemarch. You know, I will suggest we might want to do this and do that, but at the end of the day, the the will of the chapter should and always override the beliefs and the opinion
Mm.
of the Polemarch.
Say that again one more time, Doc, because that was very important. If anybody's listening to this or you watch this and you wanna lead brothers, just repeat that again one more time, Doc.
So it is the will of the chapter should always override the beliefs and the direction of the Polemarch if in opposite direction.
Mm.
So the will of the chapter is what drives the chapter.
All right, that's
And
good.
and one of the things is that Polemarchs, the authoritarian ones, they try to eliminate the voice of the chapter. And how do they do that? So they're in a meeting, formal meeting. Formal meeting, you can only speak if you're recognized. So he tells the Strat not to recognize his brother, and he can't speak. He shuts down the will of the chapter. You know, these are the tactics that were used by previous, not Theta brothers, but other Polemarchs that were very hands-on authoritarian. Um, I think it's counterproductive, and it just leads to division. It really does.
Let me ask you.
So
Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I had a follow up question. I'm going to ask you. So let me ask you this. So what did you learn most about yourself during your tenure as Polemarch?
So I'll give you an example. We were doing the boat ride, and
The boat ride.
the boat ride, and we
This
had a
boat.
sponsor. We had Black Hennessy as a sponsor of the boat ride one year, and they were providing cases of Black Hennessy for um, uh, for the boat ride, right? Free. And so we would just give shots of Hennessy and whatever. But we were in a situation that it was a week out, maybe 2 weeks out, and the brother that was supposed to secure this this sponsorship was coming short, and a a with a definitive, that, bro, John. He was coming short with coming up short with getting a signed commitment from Hennessy, right? We were at a situation where we had to do marketing. We had to get a flyer out, and either we had Hennessy on the flyer or we didn't. So I was like, this is how I am. I ask and I ask and I ask. At the point, I throw my hands up. I'm like, we're done. Let's move on without it. The will of the committee said no. We got to give this brother a chance, and truth be known, he did follow through. We lost some marketing behind it because we couldn't send out our flyer with the Hennessy brand on it. But again, it's the will of the chapter, right? And so
Right.
that
I see John smiling on that. Uh, Let me ask you this. So, uh, if I guess my next question would be, uh, if you could, looking back on it now, if you could go back to Duane Graves at 20 years old, from where you are right now, what advice would you give yourself? Because there's somebody that's going, that might be, in undergrad right now, they might be trying to find their way, like what would you tell yourself, looking back on?
truthfully, I would say, as a student, be committed to the craft, whatever you're doing, right? Be committed to it. That is your craft. That's what you should be doing, and seek out every bit of information that you can see. As a fraternity member, you have to be the steward of the chapter and of the fraternity. And I say that by, when you are in a situation and you see chapter members acting inappropriate, you have to step up and you have to be the voice of reason, because we lose so many chapters because nobody in the room stepped up and said, all down, brothers. So we have to be our own policemen. We have to hold each and every one accountable. And we should not be afraid to do so. Because if you're a brother, the only person that can step to you, and when condemnation and desertion is the last word of a true fraternity man's vocabulary, but swift and and severe disciplinary actions are in order. So brothers can fight. I've seen brothers fight, but we fight behind closed doors. But we give a unified front, to the public.
Let me ask you this: what, when you think about being a member of the fraternity, being a Kappa, being a Nuke, like what does that mean to you specifically?
So to be a Kappa to you, to me, is a undying loyalty to the fraternity and the causes and the purposes of the fraternity. So I got branded. My mother lost her mind, but I'm Kappa for life. At life, I'm not changing. I'm not going to not be a Kappa. Um, the achievement and the principles of the fraternity are guiding lights for all men, and I think if we live to those, then we will always end up on top.
I just two more final questions for you, Doc. Uh, so you've always struck me as a very a man of conviction, right? Right, wrong, and indifferent. You a very strong conviction. What's something that most brothers don't know about you?
I mean, in what way?
I mean, in general, like it could be a hobby, it could be something that you're very passionate about that most people don't know. What's something that most people like? Most people just don't know about you.
Um, I'm pretty sure. I was a four letterman athlete in high school. I played a brief period at Forest Park. Um, Warren Moon was my high school quarterback.
Okay, there you go. Hey, bingo. Or move. Oh
And I
man.
competed
Yeah.
against Wesley Walker and Wendell Tyler and
Okay. Warren Moon. That's yeah. He I want to say Warren Moon is in he's in the Canadian Football League Hall of Fame and the NFL. I want to say I could be
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if we talk about racism, this is a classic example. Warren Moon in '74 blew out the state of California passing records. Okay. Um, and he did not get one D1 scholarship
Wait,
offer.
really? What? This is what 60? What was it? 60, 60,
74,
74. Okay.
1974.
Okay.
He did
So
not
he
get one D1 offer. So what
really?
did he do? He
Wow.
went to LACC, okay,
Wow.
to play football, and then had to transfer to Washington State, where he then led the Huskies to two consecutive Super Bowls. So that means he won the Pac-10 2 years in a row.
Right.
Then, upon graduation from Washington, he didn't get drafted into the NFL.
Hmm. Huh. That's an
That's some bullshit. That's what
it
it
is.
is.
It is, and
And
it's the myth of black inferiority is it is a myth because we're just as good, just as smart, just as talented as anybody else.
always,
Um, um, my final question is when you when you think back over your time, like over the bond, and being a Polemarch and not having to sit in the seat of observation, right? And you're still active in our fraternity and in our chapter. If you were Polemarch for one day, right? What's something that you would want to change?
The relationship between the foundation and the chapter. Um, I think that the foundation is a great organization. However, it has the not the uh, capacity, but it has the threat of being taken over by what they call rogue individuals. We don't have any stopgaps in our relationship and in the bylaws to prevent a hijacking of the foundation. Um, we've already experienced two chapters in the province that had to get a brand new foundation because the initial foundation was hijacked, and that is dear and true to my heart. And I don't think we should allow that hijack or have it very difficult to do such. Right now our country is experiencing the the uh, the threat of hijacking, and it's very serious and it's very real. And those those bylaw changes, those bylaw enactions are designed to prevent somebody from seizing control and putting in, a coalition that's always going to vote in one way and hijack the foundation. Um, I believe that every chapter member should be a member of the foundation. Now, my belief is um, we have dues, right? So our dues is 280. Add $30, make our dues 310. $30 of that dues goes to the foundation as membership. So brothers, as they are active in the chapter, they are also active members in the foundation. What are the rights of members of the foundation? They get a right to vote on leadership and bylaws. The day-to-day operations of the foundation still should be run by the board. And initiations, the initiatives, the programming, all of that should be devised by the board. But having members vote on the membership, that way you have a guiding link to disrupt a rogue individual, a rogue president from putting, his coalition on the board of directors. That's what I would do.
Okay. I mean, and like I said, this is when I asked you a question, you gave me an answer. Um, so all right, so final thoughts. I mean, I guess you are now what 10 years removed from being Polemarch. Um, any final thoughts, any wisdom you would like to impart, anything that you would want to express to your chapter and at large?
Um, as being a Polemarch, one of your biggest challenges is um, not becoming dormant. Making yourself relevant. And I think that's what most chapter Polemarchs run through is is having a feeling of relevancy with the chapter.
Okay, so you're saying that you would that you your desire is to stay relevant.
Everybody's desire is to stay relevant.
Yeah.
that your opinions are regarded. We can have differences of opinions,
Right.
and I think that we tend to follow the masses, and when you follow the masses, that's when fall down into a you fall down into the rabbit hole with information and and not really fully understanding the issues at hand. So we have a tendency of voting the popular position, and we don't really dig down deep into the implications of our actions. But as long as if the leadership is going this way, oh yes, I'll do it too. So we have to always be vigilant on our issues and drill down in our programming and making sure that it's correct and going in the right direction.
Great, great. Well, past Polemarch Graves, thank you for taking this time out for this interview. It has been insightful. I learned some new things that I didn't know that you play football at War Moon. And talking about the riots and all those things, and just your overall experience, it was very informative. So thanks for taking the time out, Brother Graves. Appreciate you.
All right. I
All
look
right.
forward to your documentary.
Yeah, I'll send it to you when I'm done. All right, I'll talk with you later, Doc.
All right. See you later.
All right, see you.